It was 11:51 p.m. I'm Jessica, I'm 32, and I was in my San Francisco high-rise staring at the fourth quarter projections for my AI logistics company. My phone lit up on the desk. It was a group text from my stepmother, Sharon. Her message read, "Jessica, after a long discussion, your father and I feel it's best if you're no longer involved in the family business. Your intensity is complicated." A beat of silence, and then seconds later a new message appeared in the thread from my brother, Tyler, the family's golden child. It was just an emoji. He hearted her message. Have you ever given everything to your family, only to be treated like you were disposable? Share your story down below. I read every single one. I didn't cry. I didn't text back. Why? I just stared at the glowing emoji from my brother. My anger wasn't hot, it was cold. It was clinical. I opened my laptop. My family thinks I do IT support, a cute little remote job that keeps me busy. What I actually do is run Apex Solutions, a multi-million-dollar AI logistics company I built from nothing. I logged into the secure admin panel. I navigated to the client portal for Silver Oak Family Vineyards. There it was, the custom logistics algorithm, my algorithm, the one I built from scratch, the one that was single-handedly managing their entire operation. It flagged fermentation temperatures, managed their inventory, and processed every single distributor sale. I clicked one button, Revoke License, effective immediately. A confirmation box popped up. I clicked Confirm. At 12:03 a.m., just 12 minutes after my stepmother kicked me out of the family, the entire digital infrastructure of the Silver Oak Winery went dark. Now, let me tell you why. For the last 3 years, I have been this family's silent banker. The winery, my father Richard's legacy, has been failing for 5. I have been secretly covering their operational debts with what my father called loans. $150,000 to be exact. Money I wired, money I never saw again, money I knew I would never see again. This all started when my biological mother, Karen, died. My father married Sharon 6 months later, and from that day the roles in the house were set. See, in my family there were 2 roles. This is something I learned later in therapy. It's a classic toxic family dynamic. You have the golden child, and you have the scapegoat. My brother Tyler was the golden child. He was charming. He was handsome. He was the public face of the winery. He could do no wrong, even as he was driving the business straight.
You're probably asking, why, Jessica? Why did you keep helping them? Why pay $150,000 for people who clearly didn't respect you? That's the hard part. That's the part I've spent years unpacking. Well, they all saw me as the IT support girl, the quiet coder who was too intense. I was building Apex Solutions in the city. I built it from nothing. I built it on the coding principles my real mother, Karen, taught me before she died. She was a brilliant programmer in the 90s, a woman in a man's world. And she taught me that code wasn't just numbers, it was a language. It was logic. And logic, she said, would always expose a lie. I was successful, more successful than my father, with his failing winery, could ever imagine. But I kept it quiet, because the winery, that was his dream, and I thought if I could just fix it, if I could use my skills and my money to secretly prop it up, if I could just save his legacy, then maybe finally he would see me. Maybe I could finally earn my place at the table, not as the scapegoat, just as his daughter. But here's the truth about that kind of thinking. It's a psychological dynamic. It's called the trap of the capable child. In a dysfunctional family, the most competent child is often punished for their competence. You're not seen as a person, you're seen as a fixer. Because you can solve the problem, you can pay the bill, you can write the code, you can handle the crisis. You feel an obligation that you must. And the family enables this. They don't just let you, they expect it. They transform you from a daughter into a resource, a utility, a function. You're not Jessica. You're the one who handles the tech. You're the one with the stable job. Your hope isn't received as a gift. It's collected as a tax. For 3 years, I wasn't just a daughter. I was a resource. I was a line item on their broken budget. And that night at 11:51 p.m., that resource had just declared itself bankrupt. The sun came up, I hadn't slept. I just watched the fog roll over the San Francisco Bay, my laptop open, the screen dark. At 6:01 a.m., my phone exploded. It was exactly what you'd expect. Not a single, "Are you okay?" or "What's going on?" or "I'm so sorry." No, it was just rage. The first texts were from my brother Tyler, a stream of blue bubble panic. "What did you do to the system? The investor reports are all gone, all of them. This is petty. Jess, you're sabotaging us right before the investor gala. Dad is furious." And then the classic, "You're overreacting. Mom didn't mean it that way." I stared at that last one, that way, as if there was any other way to interpret being kicked out of your own family. They weren't shocked by what they'd done. They were just shocked that I'd finally stopped playing along. Then came the email from my father, Richard. The subject line was just, "Immediately." "I don't know what game you're playing, Jessica, but you have created an operational nightmare. You've jeopardized this entire family. You've jeopardized the gala. You need to turn the system back on and call us immediately to discuss your behavior." That was it. That was the moment the last little flickering ember of the daughter in me went cold. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a business problem, and I am very, very good at solving business problems. I picked up my phone. I didn't call them. My first call was to my old college roommate, Danielle. She's now one of the top forensic accountants in the state. She picked up on the second ring. "Jess, it's early." "Danielle," I said, my voice perfectly level, "I need you to look at some wire transfers. $150,000 worth going from my personal accounts to Silver Oak Vineyards over the last 3 years. There was a pause. "Okay," she said, all business. "Send me the statements." My second call was to Brian, my chief operating officer at Apex. "Brian, clear your schedule for Thursday night." "The gala?" he asked. "The gala," I said. "Apex Solutions is a primary sponsor. My family just cashed our check last week. They just never bothered to read the name on it. I want you, me, and a full tech and legal team there. I want a presentation ready." "What's the presentation?" "I'll be sending you the files," I said. My final act was to walk to my mother's old desk, the one I kept in my home office. It was a beautiful dark mahogany. I pulled out an antique leather-bound book, a treatise on viticulture. I opened the cover. Tucked inside a cutout in the pages was a small, encrypted hard drive. My mother, Karen, had given it to me before she died. "If you ever need to protect your work, Jessica," she'd said, her voice weak but her eyes sharp, "the truth is always in the source." I slipped the drive into my pocket. It was time to find the truth. Danielle met me at my office, not my official Apex headquarters, but a small private workspace I keep under a different name. I didn't say hello. I just placed the encrypted hard drive on the table between us. It was a heavy, old-fashioned external drive, brushed aluminum and looked like a relic. "My mother Karen left this for me," I said. "It's been in an old viticulture manual for the last 10 years. Danielle, ever the professional, just nodded and plugged it into her laptop. She was a programmer, wasn't she? "One of the best," I said. The drive whirred to life. It was heavily encrypted. It took me almost 20 minutes to bypass the security I'd watched my mother build when I was a kid. The first folder we opened was labeled Source. Inside, a single file. My algorithm. Not the version I'd given the winery, but the original build, the one I'd written 6 years ago. Every line of code was there, and every line was time-stamped. Danielle let out a low whistle. Well, that's it. This is your intellectual property, locked in digital stone, dated 6 years ago. You own the code. Clean, simple. That's not what I'm looking for, I said. Look in the archive. She clicked on a second folder, this one labeled Logs. My mother, paranoid about my father's bad business practices even then, had set up a mirror. She'd been backing up the winery server logs for years.
Danielle's eyes narrowed. She started clicking, opening files, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The logs show all the activity on the winery's server, all the sales, all the distributor reports. Okay, Danielle said, her voice tight. I see your algorithm running the sales. But what's this? There's an outgoing data packet, a transfer, and another, and another. These aren't wine sales, Jessica. She traced the packets. They're going to, hold on, Stone Creek Vineyards and Rutherford Hill and Oak Valley Estates? My blood went cold. Those are our biggest competitors in Napa. Jessica, she said, turning to face me, he didn't just use your code. She pulled up the corresponding invoices from a hidden subfolder. My brother Tyler, my father's golden child, hadn't just used my algorithm to keep the family business afloat. He had rebranded it, put his own name on it, and for the last 2 years, he had been illegally selling the license to at least 3 of their top competitors. I just stared at the screen. The transaction logs, the bank transfers into Tyler's personal offshore account. This wasn't a family misunderstanding. This wasn't about being ungrateful. This was intellectual property theft, a federal crime. My mother had known. She hadn't just left me a shield. She had left me a sword, and I finally understood how to use it. The night of the wine launch and investor gala at the Silver Oak Winery, the place was transformed. Chandeliers dripped from the rafters of the main barrel room. String music drifted over the quiet murmur of black-tie investors. My father, Richard, was on a small stage, a glass of his new Cabernet in hand, schmoozing. My brother Tyler was working the room, the golden child, in his element, all teeth and charm. I arrived not in my usual IT support jeans, but in a sharp, dark blazer, with a small, discreet pin on the lapel, the Apex Solutions logo. My COO, Brian, was at my side, carrying a laptop bag. My father saw me first. His face darkened. He put down his wine glass and strode over, grabbing my elbow. Jessica, this is highly inappropriate. I don't know what you think you're doing, but we can talk about your little tantrum later. You're making a scene. I haven't said a word, Dad, I said, my voice quiet. Tyler spotted us and hurried over, putting on his fixer smile. He put a hand on my shoulder, patronizing. Dad, it's fine. He turned to my COO, extending a hand. Brian, good to see you. So glad Apex Solutions could make it. We really appreciate the sponsorship. My sister Jessica does some IT work for us. She's just passionate. She does a little more than that, Brian said evenly. On stage, my father retook the microphone to a smattering of applause. And finally, he boomed, a special thanks to our primary sponsor for this evening, a true innovator in the tech space, Apex Solutions. This was my cue. I walked past my father, past my brother, and stepped up onto the stage. I took the microphone from his hand. The room went silent. The string music stopped. Thank you, Dad, I said. My voice was amplified, cutting through the entire room. You could have heard a pin drop. I saw my stepmother, Sharon, freeze, her glass halfway to her mouth. My father's smile was frozen on his face, a mask of confusion. Tyler's face went white. I looked at Brian, who was standing by the main projector. I nodded. The screen behind me, which had been showing a looping video of rolling vineyards, flickered. Then it changed. On the left side of the screen, a block of text. Source code. Property of Jessica last name. Timestamp 2018. On the right side, rebranded code. property of Intelligence, sold by Tyler, last name. They were side by side. My code, his stolen, rebranded version. Then the screen changed again. Transaction logs, bank transfers, wires from Stone Creek Vineyards, Rutherford Hill, Oak Valley Estates, all flowing into a single offshore account, an account in Tyler's name. A collective gasp went through the room as investors started reading the numbers. My father finally unfroze. He lunged for Brian's laptop. "What is this? Turn it off! Turn that off!" Brian didn't flinch. He simply stepped between my father and the table, placing a hand on the laptop. "That," Brian said, his voice sharp and clear, "is company property, and it's evidence." As the investors in the room started pulling out their phones, a new voice cut through the silence. "There's more." I turned. It was my stepsister, Chloe, the 20-year-old, the one who quietly handled the winery's accounting. She looked terrified, but she walked right up to Brian's laptop, holding her own. I found this," she said, plugging it in. The projector screen changed again. This time, it wasn't my code. It was a government document, a $100,000 agricultural grant application for water conservation. My father, Richard, had faked the water usage reports to get the grant. And on the screen, Chloe projected the corresponding bank statement. The entire $100,000 wasn't in the winery's account. It was sitting in a personal offshore account, an account in my father's name. It was the same $100,000 he had frantically offered me in a phone call just that morning, trying to bribe me to make this all go away. That was the final blow. My brother was a thief. My father was a fraud. My father didn't lunge this time. He just deflated. The patriarch, the man who had terrified me my entire life, just stared at the screen. Tyler was shaking his head, muttering, "No, no, no." Security, hired by Brian for exactly this possibility, stepped forward. 2 guards moved toward my father and 2 toward my brother. I watched them, and then I just walked away. I walked off the stage, past the shocked investors, past my stepmother, Sharon, who is finally crying. I walked out of the barrel room and into the cool Sonoma night air. I didn't look back. The aftermath was swift, it was brutal, it was exactly what logic dictated. With evidence of federal IP theft and grant fraud, the investors didn't just pull out, they sued. The winery collapsed into foreclosure within a month. Tyler and Richard faced multiple federal charges. My company, Apex Solutions, in a final karmic move, acquired the winery's physical assets from the bank for pennies on the dollar. Not for my father's legacy, but to save the jobs of the vineyard workers, the people who had done nothing wrong. We gutted the old brand and rebuilt it under a new name. As I walked out of that gala, leaving my family to face the world they had built, I felt quiet. For years, I thought